Good afternoon. Awesome. I heard someone respond. Thank you so much. All right, because post-lunch sessions are usually a little challenging. So what are we going to talk about, right? Couple of disclaimers. I don't have a product to sell. So I'm not going to demonstrate a product or talk about a product that I'm going to sell. Okay? So, okay, I don't have a product to sell. I'm not going to talk about some complex algorithms. I think this room is filled with people who are far more superior than I am to talk about which models to use in certain algorithms. I'm not going to talk about that. Alrighty, then what are you doing here, Avinash? What I'm going to talk about is how we use technology and artificial intelligence in particular for business transformation, for real business transformation, not just a buzzword. So as we all know, when we started hearing AI, it was all a buzzword. Oh, everyone's talking about it. And then you go to these boardrooms, and then the question would be, and I come from an old economy company, not a technology company, the discussions would be, oh, that's great. How does this help business? How does this help business? How do you make me make more money, make my customer experience better? Those foundational things. But guess what? Over a period of time, this has morphed into a technology which is really, really helping those fundamentals. So what I'm going to talk about is some of those pillars that we as a company use. I'll talk about a couple of use cases. Now they are industry specific to my industry. But I'm sure somewhere you'll be able to relate to some of those. And that's basically what I intend to do in next 20, 25 minutes. Alrighty. So, as I said, I'm not here to sell, but then when I talk about what we are doing or what our experience has been, it's important to set some context to really relate what all I'm doing or what I'm talking about to the company, to the business. That's why I have, a company overview and then a few other very, very important elements which are kind of part of what we do. Clean Harbors, who are we? We are a 43-year-old company headquartered in Boston, US, about $5.2 billion in revenues. Predominantly a North America-focused company. We don't have any commercial operation outside of North America at this point in time. And all the good stuff, New York Stock Exchange listed, and all the great stuff that we can talk about. One important element, is that this company has done a significant amount of mergers and acquisitions, a lot of M&A. And when I talk about some case studies, you'll be able to relate to why I'm specifically talking about M&A. But what do we do? Our core business is hazardous waste management and environmental services. In short, all the mess that we as an industry create, we clean that. Okay? That's what this is about. And in the morning I was asking this question, that how do we glamorize ESG, right? Because that's so very important for everybody, but we tend to think, ho jayega, someone else will take care. On one hand, we save money for our children, grandchildren, as somebody was saying this morning, but are we doing enough for our next generation from an environmental standpoint? And that is what we do as a company. And that's why we are the largest hazardous waste management company in the world. But again, how many of you honestly heard about this company before coming here or before reading that? No. Thank you so much. And there is a reason for that, because these companies do their jobs quietly. Some of the technology work is something similar that we do. I hope I'll be able to share some of our insights and kind of invigorate some conversation here. One last thing before I move on from this slide is that we as a company avoided 5.2 million metric tons of greenhouse emissions in 1 year alone. Okay? I think that's the kind of impact. That's the kind of impact a company of this type can do. And this is where, if we amplify this using technology, this can go multifold. And that's what I'm going to talk about in terms of why technology, why AI, what all we are doing, and how it ultimately adds up to this saving the environment. In India, we have global capability centers, essentially technology centers based out of Hyderabad, Pune, and Bangalore. And you know what? 80% of our company's technology team is sitting in India. It's all India. It's all, majority of it is driven end to end from India. By the way, 5 years ago, we were only 20 people doing some basic production support. From there, we have come a long way. So it is possible. It can be done. It can be very much done here. And there are some examples that I'll talk about. So, moving forward, what we are here to do, as I said, simple. Create a safer, cleaner environment. That's what we are all about. That's what the company is about. Now, when we talk about AI in our strategy, first of all, we are blessed with a founder who is extremely tech savvy, so it's much easier to sell some of these, some of these concepts. However, I think these are the 4 pillars which most of the businesses would be able to relate to. Most of the businesses. So, as part of our strategy, when we talk about embracing any technology, AI or otherwise, and generative AI being the latest one, which we subscribe to the enterprise model, shelled out a lot of money on that. Any of that, I think these are the 4 key pillars that we'll look at whether we really want to go for it. First and foremost, of course, the operational efficiency. If we are not able to get at least one of the 4 out of that initiative, it's very unlikely that the board is going to approve any investment. You can do something as a, as a hobby, you can build something as a set of people, but unless you have at least one of these 4 elements addressed, it's very hard to really take an initiative to the next level. So efficiencies, obviously, and we talk about automation, and then there is hyper-automation across different processes. Now, we as a company have looked at automation beyond what we do on your laptops, computers, desktops. This is automation, and I can quote specific example that a lot of this hazardous waste is collected in these large tankers, right? And then they are taken somewhere, the processing happens, but after every X number of trips, a physical inspection is required. Back in the day, someone would wear the personal protection equipment, really get inside the tanker with a light and do the inspection. Things changed. Now, of course, we have drones that go in there, the UV cameras that take those pictures, they feed it back to us. Great. But now, since we have been doing it for quite some time, we are having a huge data set of images. So, and we are across more than 700 locations in North America. We have like hundreds and thousands of records that we have. And then, because of the historical data, we have areas where we found problems. When we physically inspected that, now the technology helps us identify potential problems much faster in a very safer manner. Nobody needs to get inside that. That is kind of one application I can talk about, which directly relates to safety as well as the operational efficiency. Customer experience, I know we all talk about, and there are a lot of retail companies here which do a phenomenal job in customer experience. We are a B2B company. But for us, customer experience is slightly different. Of course, we have online presence and stuff like that, but major B2B customers, it's very unlikely that they use our e-commerce platform to buy stuff. They would call somebody, especially if they have a problem, they call somebody. Now the person sitting here in India, in Pune, needs to be able to relate to what the customer is saying, what those problems are, and how do you respond to that. Now, we have data set for past 43 years in some form or shape. Now, just imagine that's the kind of pile of data we are sitting on. And then I heard somebody say, data is the new oil. Yes, it really is. So we don't have to go external to find some data set elsewhere. So that's the customer experience enhancement that we provide. Again, sitting here in Pune, the call center is in Pune. That's what we do here. That's where the enhanced customer experience comes into play. I think the data-driven decisions is something which we are all very, very particularly, we are familiar with that. When you have data, when you use AI, I think there's a lot of support you get for decision making. And finally, innovation and productivity. So those are the kind of 4 key, I would say, foundational pillars where we see if there is a business impact, only and only then we move forward with that. But while doing so, as part of our strategy, what we really look at is what we call the ethical imperative. The ethical imperative is not something as like an afterthought. Oh, if something goes wrong, we'll see, or end of the project, let's review and see if something can go wrong. I think my recommendation would be this should be built into your strategy formation process itself when you use technologies like AI, because you can get yourself into trouble. First, either get wrong results from a regulatory standpoint, you can be at the receiving end, you can get sued. So many things can happen, and that's why I talk about transparency and accountability. Bias mitigation, I think that we tend to do very, very early in our journey. How do you test your models? How do you test your models to make sure that you address those bias mitigations? And I think there are multiple techniques for that, but that should be, again, right at the beginning of your initiative that you have to look at. I don't really need to talk much about data privacy and security. Obviously, that's so very critical. In fact, I have some very interesting case studies, and my legal team said, sorry, Avinash, you can't present them because there's some customer data, there's some confidential data, I can't talk about it. However, what I'm going to talk about, a couple of case studies have a little higher level, something which I can discuss in public, but data privacy is something so very important, and so is fairness and equity. Because now it's not just about the operational element, but the people element. We are using AI in our HR, right? How are you making sure that you do not have any biases, you are fair, equitable as a company, and while doing all of that, you cannot undermine the importance of human oversight and control. No matter how mature you think your model is, I think human oversight and control, at least in foreseeable future, is going to remain an important element of any of your strategy. And that's something which I think some previous speakers also spoke about, that human oversight is here to stay, and that's an ethical imperative that we have. And any of these models won't sustain over a period of time unless you have, continual learning. Of course, it's the model that needs to be trained. At the same time, it's also you as individuals, we as a company, we as a team, what are we learning? And finally, look at what is benefit we are creating, being an environmental services company, what's the benefit we are creating for the society as part of this. And for this, the foundation is very simple. If you ask me, what are your foundations? I think this is something very basic. I don't think this is kind of going to change. It's people, process, technology. I think those are the foundations of any company. Do you agree? This is something foundational. If you don't have these 3 in place, you are probably, you are not planning for success. So I think those are, again, some foundational elements that we'll look at. So what I'm really talking about is keep it simple. Technology itself per se could be complex inside, but your strategy and your execution plan has to be simple. As they say, if you can't explain your strategy in 1 paragraph, probably there is something wrong, because then how are you going to communicate this from the CEO and CIO and CTO to my development team in Hyderabad, Pune, and Bangalore, or to my people in the field across several hundred locations across North America? I think that's where the foundational elements of people, process, technology, and simplicity comes into play. Now, All good to talk about, right? But then, what's the real stuff? Now, this is where I said, again, I'll try to give as much insight as possible. Beyond a certain point, it becomes an IP issue, so I'll not be able to speak about it. But this is an interesting case study that we're talking about, which is about waste classification. So let me take a step back and tell what this is, okay? And this is, so we collect hazardous waste from, thousands of our customers. In fact, we have more than 350,000 different customers across North America for different products and services that we sell. So this is for waste classification. What we really do is, you collect, say, hazardous waste from a pharma company, for instance, and it's liquid waste. We do liquid, solid, and gaseous waste. So you collect liquid waste from a pharmaceutical company. Now, your customer may say, okay, this waste contains X, Y, and Z as these 3 or 4 different chemicals, and they are not in a position to handle it in-house. Most of these companies have what they call the effluent treatment plants, right? Most of them, they do some kind of effluent treatment then and there. However, not everything can be processed in-house. Either the scale is not as big that you have a specialized capability in your effluent treatment plant to handle it, so there has to be someone who provides those specialty services. That's what we do, okay? So now we collect all of that, and we have a hub and spoke structure wherein at different hubs we collect all those either in drums or in large tankers. We collect that. Then, no matter what the customer says, we as a company are expected to run more than 100 different tests to identify the composition of the chemical waste. Based on that composition, then we decide what is the waste classification code, and then it further goes for processing depending on that. At a very high level, I think that's what it's all about. Now imagine doing 100 different tests. Just the permutation combinations itself could be just huge. Now, the tests have to be done. It's a regulatory requirement. There's nothing we can do to circumvent those tests. But what used to take days is, once you have data from those hundreds of tests, now you try to make sense of those different tests and say, okay, what is the composition and what's the classification code based on which further action will be taken. Since we have data for more than 40 years where we have done this, we created a model, an AI model, which actually sits on that data. Now, we literally have billions of records from 40 years. What our model has been able to achieve is more than 80% accuracy. I think that's something very, very phenomenal. So we saved so much of time just by building that model, and that model, as we all know, is learning. We train them. Obviously, there is a human intervention. All the good stuff is all there, but that's what we are going through. This, we think, is a game changer, because where we used to have, the collected material sitting for days together in those tankers, an expensive affair, we are able to process that further, at least take a decision within hours. From days, it has come to hours. I think that has been something phenomenal. Now, this is an example we talk about, that you have a huge data set which you have over a period of time, and you take decisions based on that data. I think AI is a very good fit for those kind of products. We as a company also do used motor oil recycling. So you go for, you go to a garage and change your motor oil. What happens to the oil further, we don't care, right? The garage would do something, sell it to somebody. Actually, it's a hazardous material. In fact, India is coming up with a regulation wherein you cannot dispose of that oil just like that. So we collect that used motor oil from different garages, and then we have 5 re-refineries where we re-refine that oil. We are able to extract 65%, up to 65% of good oil out of the collected oil, collected waste oil that we can call. Now, for that to happen, we have a routing mechanism, because the truck has to go and pick up from different locations and things of that nature. So again, based on our data, using predictive analytics, if we are able to figure out when the oil tank of that garage, like you go to, say, Mahindra First Choice here, when they are going to have their oil filled, we are actually doing a predictive analytics on that basis, and then routing or scheduling our visits to different routes. Now, this is a major undertaking. We as a company have more than 10,000 such tankers and another about 8,000 which follow the Uber model as such. So it's a huge undertaking. And this solution, which again was developed in-house in India, is actually helping us doing that predictive shipment forecast, which helps company be more efficient, more customer friendly, and add to the bottom line. Now that's another example that I thought I should talk about. And my final case study is something which I'm sure everybody here who has been into programming would be able to relate to. A developer Copilot, right? I'm sure, how many of you are using Copilot? Anybody here? Awesome, right? So, since we are in an industry where there are very few off-the-shelf solutions available. In fintech is a complex business, but fintech as a business has so many service providers and products. Off the shelf, there are solutions available. You customize it or you configure them and can start using it. Environmental services, there's hardly anything off the shelf. What it means is that we have more than 2,000 homegrown apps, and we have been a Microsoft shop all along. Now, and they have, some of them are dated. Now, how do we upgrade them? I think that's where the Copilot has been so very helpful. We have been able to leverage that. But I must say one thing here. We also realize that if we are not keeping a human intervention there, it can absolutely go haywire. We have seen that happening. So let's not assume that, hey, I anyway have a logic in my existing code. It's there, right? I just need to write a fresh code, kind of mimicking more or less the same thing, but it can go haywire. We've seen that. So this is, again, a phenomenal case study, a very successful one, but we also realized that the human intervention required was probably much more than what we thought it would be. So using Copilot, please, but use it with caution. Don't assume that it will all happen automatically and things will take care of itself. Now, what I want to emphasize on when I speak about these case studies, all of that, be it purely operational or on the technology side, what cannot be replaced is the domain knowledge. If you understand the business, I think these technologies make sense. Or otherwise, we are heading for disaster if you just say, I'm a techie guy. And I remember when I started, 30 years ago, when I started as a hands-on programmer, and it was a much different kind of setup. So you as a customer, we are having some conversation about requirements, and even before you finish telling your first requirement, mentally I would have designed the database and I would have probably been writing a query. That's how we all evolved. But unless I understand the problem, understand the business, I think it's an AI all the more important that we have to have strong partnership with business. Either you learn the business or have a strong partnership with domain experts, because they add immense value to the solution that you provide. If we don't do that, I think it could be good showcase of your technological prowess, but will it really add value to the business is always going to be a question. So what I would say is, our strategy, that's why, is on the Gen AI, we use for augmenting humans. We use Copilots, predictive analytics, ensure scalability, enhance customer experience. These are all great things. But let's not compromise on the foundational aspects. If our foundations are strong, I think there's so much of talent available here. We can build on that foundation from a technology perspective. At the same time, collaboration with business people who actually run the business, who understand the domain. I think that is probably the cornerstone of success in addition to the technology. Now, that's all I have, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the session. I mean, it was quite relatable because I also work in an infrastructure company. So implementing there any AI use case is a huge task altogether. Like 75% of your time will go in the awareness and adaptability. But I want to know the 3 use cases that you have presented. Any of the use case you have implemented in the business, and could you please share that what was the impact after implementation of those solutions?
Oh, sure. In fact, if you look at some of these business cases, now this is obviously this is very typical technology business case. So it's, as I said, 80% of our technology team is in India, so that's what it is. However, when I talk about this is actually in business. This is how you do your routing, because there's a lot of transportation involved, how you optimize the usage of your equipment, and how do you optimize the capacity of your operational sites. Now, we have 4 re-refineries. They are all at a distance apart, but if I go to a refinery A and my truck is going to stand there for 4 days because the line is full, versus I may go 500 miles extra and go to refinery B and still get it processed. So those kind of decision making we have been able to do. This is real, tangible output. This is not virtual. Or when you talk about waste class, very, very business specific to our business. I'm sure in infrastructure, if there are any case studies, we can connect offline. But I'm sure there are many, many use cases where we can implement this.
Sure. So was there any, if in terms of numbers, can you share that what was the number change in this, especially in the second use case?
All right, I probably will be able to give you a little. I know the answer, right? I'll tell you, but I can give you an indicative answer here. Like this particular use case you're talking about, I'll not talk about a dollar value, but the fact that a process that used to take between 24 to 36 hours, we are able to do it in 4 hours. Just imagine the overall impact of that. Now, 700 plus collection facilities into this, we are talking like a huge number here. I will not talk about the dollar value, but we can imagine that it's crunched the time from average 24 to 36 to like 4 hours. So that's the kind of business impact.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, please. Yeah, there's a question there and here, please.
Hi, this is Abhinandan from here in the front row. Front row.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Hi,
so I just wanted to know one thing from you. So you mentioned in technology roadmap there is PPT, people, process, and technology. So what, according to you, is the most challenging in terms of business transformation among these? And next thing that I want to know, in the process of setting up the process for business transformation, are we delaying the business transformation in terms of AI?
Oh, that's a great question. So the first question is what technology to use, right?
Out of these 3, process, people, and technology.
Oh, okay. What is more important? I would say all 3 are equally important. You can't compromise on one for sake of others. But if you ask me personally, from my experience, I think people come first. People have to come first. I think that's something which doesn't mean my personal experience. As a company, we say all 3 are important, but people come first. Now, your question about process, how to define the process, and are we delaying the process of transformation? It's a tricky thing. It also a lot depends on the character of your company, that what kind of a company you are. If you ask me, Clean Harbors as a company, that's the culture. So we call ourselves, we are probably the oldest startup. We are a 43-year-old company, but we are still startup. So we say that if we are between 80 to 90% there in terms of what we want to achieve, let's go for it. We are not aiming at perfecting everything. We know that no matter what we do, there are going to be things we'll learn along the way, and we'll have to, be it a business model or an AI model, we'll have to refine that. So if you are 80 to 90% there, you feel good about it, I would say go for it. Second, don't don't try to do a big bang. Take a, take a pilot and phased approach, which will help you learn. That probably is a better trade-off, a middle ground. I mean, you can't have that wild west, right? Okay, I know, let's go ahead and do it. There has to be a strategy behind it. But again, you can't get into that analysis paralysis also. There's a middle ground that you need to find, which is what I won't say we have perfected the art, but I think we have had a good amount of success there. Thank you. Thank you. I think, yeah, please.
Yeah. So I'm actually countering the AI part here. I mean, I'm a data scientist, but the question is little more, technical as well. So here we're talking about, let's say 100 tests, and the features that you get here can be, can be continuous as well as categorical. Now, when you're talking about some sort of rule-based engine, where people have worked on, the domain experts have worked on, as you said, there can be a lot of combinations that can happen. Now, if you can program it rather than using the AI, you might get 100% accuracy within the same amount of inferencing time with less model sizes, right? So,
yeah, I mean, so as I said, I wish we were at a stage where I could claim we get 100% accuracy, but we have not reached there.
No, I'm talking about if we, program the, the domain aspect and how these combinations will give what wastage, the waste classification code, then it would obviously give the 100% because as you said, the entire training data has been developed for the past 40 years by the domain experts.
Right. So I wish anybody from chemical industry here who deals with chemicals, the especially hazardous chemicals, all I would say, great. I would say that it is probably more complex than that. What's your name?
Sai Srinivas.
It's more complex than that Sai, and we have a gentleman here from the chemical industry. He can help you understand. Just because you conducted 100 tests, still you may have skipped a small, fine part of, say, some very, very hazardous chemical. It could be 0.1%, but still it could be hazardous. So, yeah, there is a regulation which asks you to do 100 tests, but there is no foolproof mechanism which will tell you everything. And that is why, there's some amount of human intervention that is required. It cannot be fully automated. That's another required. And probably we can take offline as to how this process was. Probably offline I can tell you more details, but thank you so much.
Sir?
Yeah, I think we have time for?
Last question.
Oh. All right. Hey,
thank you so much.
Sorry, I think we don't have, do we have time for one question? No, okay. All right. So what I would love to do is, if we can connect offline, I'll be very happy to share our experiences. At the same time, I would also love to learn from you what your experiences have been. Ultimately, it cannot be one way. But once again, thanks for a patient listening, and thanks to the organizers for giving this opportunity. Thank you so much.